A reggae star's daughter is breaking her silence with a confession the world was never supposed to hear. I have the exclusive footage where she reveals the painful truth her family hid for years. Stick until the final moment to understand the real legacy her father left behind and why it's not what you think. Long before that night, before reporters uttered words like hijacking, weapon shot, and investigation, there was a softer story unfolding. One only Nkule fully understood. She had grown up backstage, where amplifiers hummed like sleeping beasts and guitars waited in dark corners like loyal soldiers. Tour buses doubled as playgrounds, and rehearsals felt like family dinners. Lucky Dube, to millions, was the voice of rebellion and righteousness. But to her, he was simply the man who steadied her bicycle, the man whose laughter warmed the house more than any heater, the man who lifted her chin with a fingertip whenever the world seemed cruel. He always spoke in a tone that mixed gentleness with insistence, as though every sentence carried a responsibility he refused to ignore. His words stayed with her even long after she thought she had forgotten them. Music is spirit, Nkule. It chooses you before you choose it. At the time, she just nodded, only half listening, unaware that one day she would cling to those words like a lifeline. When the news broke, it traveled faster than breath. Radio stations switched their playlists immediately, as if instinct knew what protocol could not. Television anchors carried the weight of a continent in their expressions. Fans cried openly, in markets, in streets, in offices where productivity suddenly felt offensive. Tributes crossed borders in a matter of hours. Some said Africa had lost its reggae lion. Others said a revolutionary had been silenced. Still, others whispered that a prophet had laid down his burden. But none of these voices could reach the quiet corner where Nkule sat with swollen eyes, her mind haunted by the last conversation she had with him. She wondered if he had known, somehow, that danger lurked only minutes ahead. She wondered if he had looked at her siblings in those final moments and felt a father's instinctive terror or a warrior's refusal to surrender. These questions gnawed at her in the dark, and no amount of public mourning could soften them. The events leading to his death unfolded quickly, almost too quickly to comprehend. Lucky Dube had just dropped off two of his children in Rosettenville, a neighborhood that had no reason to expect that history was about to stain its pavements. As he prepared to leave, armed men emerged from the shadows with a confidence that suggested they believed the night belonged to them. A confrontation followed, brief, chaotic, irreversible. A bullet struck him with deadly precision. The car drifted. His children screamed. The attackers fled. Lives split open. For the authorities, the next days became a blur of witness statements, tire tracks, suspects, and interrogations. South Africa demanded answers. The reggae world demanded justice. In the whirlwind of sirens, press conferences, and courtroom anticipation, Nkule remained caught in the slow-motion agony of remembering her father's smile. When arrests were eventually made, names Sifiso Mlanga, Julius Noah, and Mbuti Mabe became part of public discourse. Repeated endlessly in newspapers and whispered throughout communities, these men, once unknown to her, became the symbols of a wound she could neither understand nor fully escape. Courtrooms have a strange smell, cold, metallic, permanent. When the trial began, the air was thick with judgment, even before the judge entered. Witnesses described the scene with trembling voices. Evidence was presented. Prosecutors spoke with an urgency that showed they understood the magnitude of the case. And yet for Nkule, none of it mattered. No testimony could rewind time. No sentence could resurrect a life. When the magistrate finally delivered the verdict, life imprisonment for each of the three men, there was a hush, a dense, suffocating hush, as if everyone recognized that justice, though necessary, felt painfully small compared to the enormity of the loss. Prison gates closed behind the life takers, and the world moved on. But she did not. She carried the weight with her, not as a headline, but as a constant ache. The funeral arrived like a river that drowned its own banks. Thousands traveled from every corner of South Africa, dressed in a blend of mourning colors and spiritual symbolism. The melodies of his songs that once made strangers dance together, now guided mourners through grief. Shembe church elders chanted sacred hymns, their white garments fluttering like wings in a restless wind. A cowhide was laid over his coffin, a gesture steeped in dignity and tradition. The public ceremony overflowed with emotion, but the private burial felt more intimate, almost unbearably so. In Newcastle, KwaZulu-Natal, a simply grave awaited him, humble, quiet, unassuming, a stark contrast to the roar of audiences he once commanded. As the soil covered him, something inside her shifted. The earth wasn't just burying her father, it was closing a chapter she had never agreed to end. For a long time afterward, music hurt her. Even melody alone without lyrics felt like betrayal. Every note carried her father's shadow. Every rhythm stirred memories she wished she could silence. She avoided stages because spotlights reminded her of his warmth. She avoided microphones because they echoed the timbre of his teachings. People around the world kept playing his records, posting his images, wearing his shirts. They celebrated the legend, but she faced the void. She wondered why healing demanded so much from the wounded, why the world moved so quickly to memorialize, while she remained trapped in a slow-burning grief that refused to obey time. But grief is a strange teacher. It softens, reshapes, creates openings where none existed before. In the years that followed, something within her began to stir, not loudly, not suddenly, but steadily. The silence that once held her began to feel less like an enemy and more like a companion nudging her forward. She remembered the way he used to close his eyes when singing, as though he could see a world no one else could. She remembered how he would place her small hand on the guitar strings and tell her to feel the vibration, not just hear it. She remembered the night he told her that messages in music survive longer than the people who create them. And one day, without fully understanding why, she picked up a microphone again. Her first performance after his death felt like stepping into fire. The stage lights burned her vision. Her heartbeat thrashed against her ribs. For a moment, she considered turning back, disappearing into the wings, surrendering to the fear that had kept her silent for so long. But when she finally opened her mouth, something miraculous happened. Her voice, shaken at first, found its footing. It carried clarity, weight, and a tenderness that did not replicate her father's sound, but resonated with it. The audience reacted instantly. Some cried, some stood, some whispered to one another that Lucky Dube had not left them after all. It was not the resemblance that moved them, it was the inheritance of courage. As Nkule Dube continued performing, traveling, and sharing her own music, she discovered a layered truth about legacy. It does not demand imitation, it demands sincerity. She did not wish to become a shadow of Lucky Dube or a museum of his memory. She wanted to honor his teachings by living them rather than recreating them. Every stage she stepped onto became a continuation of a conversation she had been having with him since childhood. Sometimes, mid-performance, she could almost sense him behind her, adjusting the strap of her guitar, whispering encouragement the way he used to before his concerts. These moments no longer broke her. They steadied her. The world welcomed her warmly, perhaps more warmly than she expected. Audiences in Africa, Europe, the Caribbean, and beyond recognized not only the legacy she bore, but the artistry she cultivated on her own terms. Interviewers often asked her about her father, eager for personal anecdotes or emotional revelations. She offered what she could, guarding certain memories, the way one guards family heirlooms. Fans sometimes approached her after shows with tears streaming down their cheeks, grateful that through her, they could still feel connected to a man whose music shaped their youth, their struggles, their triumphs. She learned to receive their gratitude without letting it consume her, understanding that everyone mourns differently, and sometimes audiences mourn through the children of their heroes. But Nkule also discovered something else. Legacy does not shield one from pain. Every time a song required her to revisit the emotional terrain of loss, she felt the familiar sting. Every time people compared her to him, she struggled to assert her individuality. Yet in each challenge, she found strength she did not know she possessed. Her journey became one of balancing remembrance with rebirth, honoring the past without becoming confined by it. Occasionally, old wounds resurfaced in unexpected ways. An interview clip of one of the convicted killers expressing regret circulated online years later. He claimed they had mistaken Lucky Dube for someone else, that they had never intended to harm him, that it had all been a tragic misunderstanding. Many people debated whether the apology mattered, whether remorse could soften a sentence or lighten a legacy of pain. But for Nkule, none of it was relevant. What could an apology do? It could not undo her childhood memories tinged with sorrow. It could not restore the warmth of his embrace. It could not erase the night that split her into a before and after. She learned that closure is not something the world gives you. It is something you craft slowly and quietly, piece by piece. As the years unfolded, her role in the world of music transformed. She was no longer simply the daughter of a legend. She became a bearer of flame, a flame she neither asked for nor rejected. Now, you have heard her full story. How does hearing this truth change your view of a legend's legacy? Share your thoughts on healing and family in the comments below. Follow for more exclusive revelations from behind the scenes of music's biggest names.